Hi vinyl community, it's Mike Vinyl Sparrow here, and today's video is my response to a thread called One Decade, One Record, and it was started by Jason at Spins Vinyl. Now, I was tagged to do this video by Rob Walker at Let the Music Play, and I hadn't come across Jason's channel before. So I went over there, I had a look. He's only been doing this for a few months, I believe, but already he's amassed about 1,200 subs. He's a guy who's very comfortable in front of the camera. He does some great videos. He shows all sorts of different music. So, go over there, have a look and see what you think. Now, the rules are quite simple. All you have to do is you start with any decade you like and you show a record from that decade. Once you've done that, you move on to the next decade, show a record from that decade, and so on and so forth. You can start at whichever decade you like, and you can finish whenever you like. So the records don't have to be linked, but I think it's quite nice if they can be. So, as I say, I was tagged to do this by Rob Walker. And one of the stipulations of the thread is that once you completed it, you should tag 3 more people who you think will be able to do a good job of the thread. So if you want to know if you're one of the lucky 3, then you have to watch this video all the way to the end. So I'm starting in the 1960s and it's 1968, and it's the god of hellfire himself. It's Arthur Brown. This is the crazy world of Arthur Brown. Now, he had a worldwide hit in 1968 with the track Fire, and I'm sure that you all know it. Now, this album is it's psychedelic, it's completely mad, and Arthur himself was the crazy guy. He would do things like appearing on stage completely naked, daubed in paint, and of course, his trick, the one that gave him the nickname, the God of Hellfire, was that he'd put a flaming helmet on his head, and I understand that this led to minor burns on more than one occasion. This is a really good album. I think it's got some great tracks on. So as well as the hit single Fire, we've got a track called Come On By, a track called Time. Then there's I Put a Spell on You, which is a Screaming Jay Hawkins cover. Then the Spontaneous Apple Creation, which is quite psyche. And Rest Cure, I've Got Money, which is a James Brown cover. And Child of My Kingdom. Now, if you Google Arthur Brown, you'll find out that he was born in Whitby, and you're probably thinking, well, what's the connection with Leeds? Because Whitby is a good 75 miles away from Leeds. However, when he was a kid, his family moved from Whitby to Leeds. And in fact, he went to the same school, that's Roundhay School in Leeds, that my kids went to. And not only that, I've got another weird connection with Arthur Brown, and the house that his folks bought in Leeds is actually this house. So this is where the god of hellfire lived, and now I live here. So that's my connection with Arthur Brown. So that's the 1960s out of the way, and we move on to 1970s, probably my favourite Leeds band, and that's Gang of Four. This is their debut from 1979, and it's called Entertainment. Now, like many people in the UK, I became aware of Gang of Four through John Peel, and I think it was probably when he was playing the Damaged Goods EP, and I thought, yeah, I've really got to have some of this. So I really had to have this album. Unfortunately, the original that I bought has been lost in the mist of time, and this is actually a reissue. But this is an absolutely brilliant album, as all of Gang of Four's albums are. So you've got Ether which is a great track to kick off the album. Natural's not in it. Not Great Men, Damaged Goods, and there's Return the Gift, which again is one of my favourites. Guns Before Butter, probably the most political of the songs on this album, and Gang of Four, as you probably know, they're quite a political band. They're on the left, so they're on the right side of the argument. Then side two, I found that Essence Rare, which I believe was a single. And it's got Glass, Contract, At Home He's a Tourist, another track that I'm sure that a lot of people know. 5:45, and then it ends with Anthrax. So there you go, my favourite band from Leeds, Gang of Four, 1979, Entertainment. So moving on to the 80s, and this album, Rob, has got a Manchester connection as well as a Leeds connection. And it's these guys. It's A Wedding Present and their album, George Best. Sorry, mate, it's the wrong side of Manchester, isn't it? But I don't care. Anyway, as I say, this is from 1987. It's their debut album, and it was released on their own label. It's Reception Records. There's the label, and I really love these guys. I think that David Gedge is an absolutely brilliant songwriter. So, I mean, the tracks on here, I mean, titles like Everyone Thinks He Looks Daft, What Did Your Last Servant Die Of, Don't Be So Hard, A Million Miles, All This and More, and then my favourite dress, which was a single, but the version on here is different from the single. Side two, Shatner, i.e. that's William Shatner, Something and Nothing, It's What You Want That Matters, Give My Love to Kevin, Anyone Can Make a Mistake, and You Can't Moan, Can You? And, you know, they're still going strong with The Wedding Present. They released an album recently called 24 Songs. It's a triple album. I've reviewed it, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. And what happened is that they released 12 singles, one a month, during last year. And the album collects those singles and all the B-sides together, plus a few extra tracks, and it's a great album. So Wedding Present, they're still on form after all these years. Then moving on from the 80s to the 90s, there you go, Nightmares on Wax, and this is Smoker's Delight, and this is the moniker of a guy called George Evelyn. Now, George Evelyn is a DJ, and he's from Chapeltown in Leeds. And he grew up listening to his dad's soul records. Apparently, his dad was a particular fan of Curtis Mayfield and Quincy Jones. And also, he was listening to embryonic hip-hop music. And coming from Chapeltown, he was, well and truly infused with West Indian culture, and all of these influences come together on this album. You know, you can hear the soul, you can hear the hip hop, you can hear the reggae, you can hear the Afro beat. It's a lovely album. It's a second album. It's from 1995, and it really cemented his reputation as being one of the leading lights in trip hop. But ironically, he didn't really like the term. He didn't recognise trip hop, and he said, "Well, that's just a word." He said, "It's hip hop," and fair dues. But this is this is a stoned out, laid back album, and I really love it. So again, tracks for me. We've got "Bless My Soul," which is a great track. "Wait a Minute," "Groove Street," I love that. "Mission Venice," and then the final track on the album. It's actually a double album. So the final track on side 4 is called Gambia via Vagator Beach, and you've really got the sort of African influences on that particular track. It's an instrumental album, It's great. I love the cover. It's very psychedelic. There you go. That's there's the inside. And there you go. So that's representing Leeds in the 1990s. It's Nightmares on Wax and second album, Smoker's Delight. So now we get to the 2000s, and of course, the most famous bands come out of Leeds, and it's these guys, Kaiser Chiefs. It's their 2005 debut, Employment. Now, I hadn't listened to this album for a long time because, quite honestly, these guys, rose to fame quite rapidly, and they were massively overexposed. And quite honestly, you just sort of get sick of them. The name of the band actually comes from the name of the South African football team, and that was the football team that was the first professional team for Lucas Radebe, who played for Leeds United in the late 90s, early 2000s, and in 1999 he was actually the captain of Leeds United, and he was something of a folk hero with Lucas Radebe. So they thought in tribute to Lucas, they called their band Kaiser Chiefs. Now, I hadn't listened to this album for a long time, and I thought, I'm not going to enjoy it because, as I say, I've got a bit fed up. But after a big gap, I found that it was actually a pretty good album. Tracks that I particularly like. I like Modern Way. You Can Have It All, and what's the other one? Time on the Tradition. Three tracks that I think sort of stand out for me. However, there's one track on here that I just can't abide. The most overexposed, overused song of all times, I think, and it's I Predict a Riot. Now, there was a time, when you couldn't avoid seeing the Kaiser Chiefs on a daily basis on some show or another. DJs, without an original thought in their heads, would introduce the Kaiser Chiefs by saying something like, I predict the next band up are the Kaiser Chiefs. And you go, ho, 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 isn't that funny? I've only heard that 100 times today. And quite honestly, I hate that song. But apart from that, it's a pretty good album. So from 2005, representing the 2000s, that's Kaiser Chiefs and Employment. Right, next one. I've shown this before, and there's a wedding present connection here. David Solalka was the guitarist with Wedding Present. He, amongst others, formed this band, the Ukrainians, and this is 2014 album. It was a record store day release, in fact, called Never Mind the Cossacks, Here's the Ukrainians. Now, you're probably guessing the title that this is an album of Sex Pistols covers, and it's brilliant. It's a great novelty, but the music's pretty good as well. So if you want to hear the Sex Pistols sung in Ukrainian, then this is the album for you. So what we've got on here, we've got Anarchy in the UK, God Save the Queen, Pretty Vacant, Holidays in the Sun, Problems, amongst others. And the tracks have also got the names in Ukrainian, but it's all in Cyrillic script, so I can't tell you what they're actually called in Ukrainian. But I love this album. It's Never Mind the Cossacks, Here's the Ukrainians, and that represents Leeds in the 2010s. And finally, bringing us up to date, a 2022 album, and it'll be no surprise, I think, that I'm showing this one. It's The Overload by Yard Act, and I think these guys are going places. This is their one and only album so far. This is a limited edition from Jumbo Records. In fact, I've got number 1 of 100 of this album. and it came with this this fanzine with lots of pictures in there. It's quite a funny read as well. And there you go. So this is it. Now, you know, tracks on here. We've got the Overload, the title track, Dead Horse, one of my favourites, which is Rich, and Witness. Side 2, we've got Land of the Blind, Quarantine the Sticks, Tall Poppies, Pour Another, and it ends with 100% Endurance. Now, Yard Act caught the eye of none other than Elton John, and he got in contact and said, let's do something together. So, Record Store Day this year, Yard Act and Elton John released a single, and it's a version of 100% Endurance featuring Elton John. And on the B side of the single, we've got Tiny Dancer. So I think if Elton John gives this band seal of approval, then you know, they've got no excuse for really going places. So I look forward to sort of seeing how they progress, you know, and once they get to their second and third albums, and then we'll see just how good they are. But up to now, I'm pretty impressed. So that's my decades from the 60s right up to date. And then I've just got one more duty to perform before I go, and that's to tag 3 channels to take up the thread. So I thought what I'd do is I'd make this an intercontinental affair. So, number 1, I'm going to tag the Bobby on the Beat, and that's Mike PC31, the Vinyl Policeman. And he's from the south of England, and he, of course, is representing the continent of Europe. So we'll all be rooting for you, Mike. And second off, representing the continent of North America, is the musical mechanoid himself. It's Brian, the embryonic robot. Now, Brian's got a fantastic record collection, and I'm sure he'll do this justice, as Mike will as well. So I need one more. So let's go to Australasia and the Dame Edna Everage of the vinyl community. It's the Wizard of Oz, it's Ben Rankins. So you 3 guys, I look forward to seeing your videos, and remember, the reputation of an entire continent rests on your shoulders now. So, you know, you better produce something pretty special. So there you go. I'll leave links in the description. And so until next time, bye-bye.